Okay, we're on. 1 Samuel 20, maybe we'll get through 22 would be kind of our goal. Also today this is one of those times where quite a few of the Psalms, remember David wrote quite a few of the Psalms, they match up with some of the stories we're going to hear in 1 Samuel, so we'll look at the section and then we'll look at a couple Psalms that coincide with what was going on in his life at the time. Not a whole lot of real deep theological questions today, just kind of more of you see the paranoia of Saul. Saul continues to spiral down. He just is really losing it when it comes to his hatred of David, and he's even going to go after his son Jonathan now for his friendship with David. Saul is, as much as he wanted to maybe give him the benefit of the doubt earlier in his life, it's becoming pretty clear where he stands in his faith life with his actions. So remember Saul in chapter 19 he had sent some of his servants to go kill David. They went and ended up being overtaken by the Spirit of God and started prophesying instead of killing David. And then Saul said, fine, I'll just do it myself. And then he ended up prophesying as well instead of killing David. So kind of one of those you can't, God's going to do what God's going to do no matter how much you want to do something otherwise. So David is hanging out with Samuel right now. And now it's become clear that David realizes I got to get out of here now that Saul knows where I'm at. My hiding place is kind of blown. So this is the story of him moving on, and he's sort of on the run from Saul over these few chapters. Okay, so chapter 20, about 1 through 15. 1 through 15. Someone want to do that? Charlie's got it, thank you. Do your best with the names.
Right. David fled from Naioth in Ramah. He came to Jonathan and asked, what have I done? Am I guilty of something? What is my sin against your father that makes him seek my life? Jonathan said to him, a curse on me if that happens. You will not die. Look, my father does nothing, whether important or unimportant, without telling me about it. Why would my father hide this from me? It is not so. But David took an oath and said, your father certainly knows that I have found favor in your eyes. So he might say, do not let Jonathan know about this, or he will be very upset. But as surely as the Lord lives, and as surely as your soul lives, there is only a step between me and death. Then Jonathan said to David, ask me for whatever you really want, and I will do it for you. David said to Jonathan, listen, tomorrow is a new moon, and I am expected to dine with the king. But let me go so that I can hide in the countryside until the evening of the third day. If your father misses me at all, say, David urged me to excuse him so that he could run to Bethlehem, his hometown, because it is the annual sacrifice. Therefore, he is there for his entire family. If he says, that is fine, your servant will be at peace. But if it really displeases him, then you will know that he is planning evil. You must show kindness to your servant, because you have made a covenant in the name of the Lord with me, your servant. But if I am guilty of anything, kill me yourself. Why should you bring me to your father? Jonathan said, a curse on me if that occurs, because if I knew that my father was planning to harm you, wouldn't I tell you? Then David said to Jonathan, who will tell me if your father gives you a harsh response? Jonathan said to David, come, let's go out into the field. So the two of them went into the field. Jonathan said to David, I swear by the Lord, the God of Israel, about this time tomorrow or the day after, when I have tested my father to see if he is favorably inclined toward David, I will send word to you so that you will hear about it. May the Lord punish Jonathan severely and double it if my father is planning to harm you and I do not disclose it to you and send you on your way so that you may go in peace. May the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. You must show the mercy of the Lord to me, not only while I am still alive, so that I do not die, but you also must not cut off your mercy from my house forever. No, not even when the Lord has cut off every one from my house forever.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, seems as if Jonathan doesn't know just how bad it is, right? He doesn't know just how much his dad has it in for David. I remember back in chapter 18 is kind of where he came on the scene, and David and Jonathan became very good friends, very close friends. And Jonathan is just kind of taken aback when David says, I'm one step away from death, my friend. No, my dad's not like that. He says, well, here's the thing. So this section is just sort of showing you David and Jonathan's closeness, showing you how, Jonathan is going to side with David over his dad. And we're going to see that here in a little bit. Jonathan knows David's next in line. Jonathan knows that David's going to be the next king, and he's not going to be the next king. So at the end of what Charlie read there, he's kind of, remember me when that day comes. Remember me when you're in charge and my dad isn't. Remember the things we're doing here today, that you can take care of me and my family, because I know what's coming for dad, and it's not going to be good. So you get the sense that Jonathan was a good guy, and yeah, maybe a little naive, I guess. How do you not understand what your dad is doing here? But anything that Charlie read there that made you kind of think or wonder or have a question?
No, it's just interesting that that version has the curse. May I be cursed or ruled instead of, because it's not in the NIV that one.
Yeah.
Punished ever so severely or whatever.
Yeah, they call it like the oath formula and the curse formula. There's a certain way to write it in Hebrew that, basically may the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely if, and then you fill in the blank with whatever we'd say, like, not that you're supposed to, but I swear to God is kind of what you'd say today, that you're asking a punishment on yourself if you break like, if I swear, then that's a really big deal. And I know that's a second commandment sin, but that'd be the equivalent of that, where may God really bring the hammer down on me if I break my side of this bargain or this covenant that we're making.
I forget what verse it was, but at some point Jonathan said, may the Lord, I think it was, may the Lord be with me as he's been with my father.
Yeah.
Well, the Lord had already left his father.
Right, which kind of makes you think, you wonder how much Jonathan really knew what was going on, that maybe he wasn't quite as close to his dad as he thought he was, and you wonder how much David had told him. Is David kind of keeping some of these things to himself and not wanting to tell his best friend, your dad's a real tool. Your dad's got some issues and God has abandoned him and he's trying to kill me. And now David's going to show a couple not so great sides of him in this section too coming up. But as this discussion goes on, it makes you think maybe David kept some of this to himself and maybe Jonathan wasn't quite as close to his dad as he thought he was. That he's just sort of clueless of everything going on. So what was the plan here to find out Saul's intentions? Did you catch that? What is David's suggestion as to how are we going to know if your dad's mad at me or not?
Reaction to his absence.
Okay, yeah, we have this new moon festival. There's going to be a big dinner and I'm supposed to be there. I'm not going to be there. If he doesn't lose his temper, then all is good. If he does, then that tells you that there's a problem. And Jonathan says, okay, sounds good. Let's just keep going, and then we'll circle back a little bit. About 16 through 29. 16 through 29. All right, Lynn, thank you.
So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord call David's enemies to account. And Jonathan had David reaffirm his oath out of love for him, because he loved him as he loved himself. Then Jonathan said to David, tomorrow is the new moon festival. You will be missed, because your seat will be empty. The day after tomorrow, toward evening, go to the place where you hid when this trouble began, and wait by the stone Ezel. I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it, as though I were shooting at a target. Then I will send a boy and say, go, find the arrows. If I say to him, look, the arrows are on this side of you, bring them here. Then come, because as surely as the Lord lives, you are safe. There is no danger. But if I say to the boy, look, the arrows are beyond you, then you must go, because the Lord has sent you away. And about the matter you and I discussed, remember, the Lord is witness between you and me forever." So David hid in the field, and when the new moon festival came, the king sat down to eat. He sat in his customary place by the wall opposite Jonathan, and Abner sat next to Saul. But David's place was empty. Saul said nothing that day, for he thought, "Something must have happened to David to make him ceremonially unclean. Surely he is unclean." But the next day, the second day of the month, David's place was empty again. Then Saul said to his son Jonathan, "Why hasn't the son of Jesse come to the meal, either yesterday or today?" Jonathan answered, "David earnestly asked me for permission to go to Bethlehem. He said, 'Let me go, because our family is observing a sacrifice in the town, and my brother has ordered me to be there. If I have found favor in your eyes, let me get away to see my brother. That is why he has not come to the king's table.'"
Okay, so we're doing it just the way David suggested. What is David's signal gonna be when the yes or no, yea or nay, as far as you need to leave or it's okay to stay?
Where the arrows land down.
Yeah, so, we're not sure what the distance was, but you can imagine here's Jonathan and David, go hide, you know where to hide, hide out by that rock over there. And when I have the verdict, I'm gonna shoot these arrows, and if I shoot them short of where you're at, and you hear me say to the servant, "Hey, they're right there in front of then you know it's okay. But if you hear me say, "Oh, they're way back there," then you know that it kind of is happening the way you thought it was gonna happen, and Dad is really mad at you, so that's going to be the sign one way or the other. Keep going. Someone 30 through the end of the chapter. Cody's got that. No surprise here, but Saul gets mad.
And Saul's anger burned against Jonathan, and he said to him, "You son of a perverted, unfaithful woman, don't I know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, you will not be established, nor will your kingship. So send for him and bring him to me, because he must surely die." Jonathan answered his father Saul, "Why should he be put to death? What has he done?" Saul threw his spear at him to hit him. So Jonathan knew that his father was determined to put David to death. Jonathan got up from the table in fierce anger, and he ate no food on the second day of the month, for he grieved for David, because his father had treated David so shamefully. In the morning, Jonathan went out into the field at the time he had set with David. He took a young servant boy with him. He said to his boy, "Run out and find the arrows that I shoot." As the boy ran, Jonathan shot an arrow beyond him. When the boy reached the area where Jonathan's arrow had landed, Jonathan yelled to the boy, "Isn't the arrow farther out from you?" Jonathan shouted to the boy, "Go faster, hurry up, don't be slow." Jonathan's boy picked up the arrows and came back to his master. The boy did not know anything about what was going on, only Jonathan and David knew. Jonathan gave his equipment to his boy and told him, "Go on ahead, carry these things into the city." As soon as the boy was gone, David got up from the south side of the mound. He fell down with his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. They kissed one another and wept together, but David wept more. Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, because we have both sworn in the Lord's name. May the Lord stand between you and me, and between my offspring and your offspring forever." David got up and left, and Jonathan went back into the city.
All right, thank you, sir. So, yeah, everything kind of happened the way David thought it was going to happen. But Saul's anger flared up at Jonathan.
Yeah.
And number 4 there, what does Saul offer as his reason for his anger against David? What does he say to Jonathan? Why is he so mad that Jonathan and David are friends?
Because as long as David lives, he's gonna be the next ruler and Jonathan won't be.
Yeah, and Saul knew that the kingdom was ripped away from him, so Saul is just completely defying Samuel. He's defying the will of the Lord. Remember that whole story when he tried to grab onto Samuel and ripped his cloak, and Samuel says, "So shall your kingdom be taken away from you." He's just defiantly rebelling against God and his prophet, and so to the point where he's ready to kill his son. Right? He's the same thing he did with David. He grabs his spear and he throws it at his son. Paranoia is the only word that comes to mind, right? He's just going spiraling out of control. He's so mad at David. And when you think about it again, what caused this? Why is he so upset? What did David ever do to him?
He's better at stuff.
He's what?
He's better at stuff. The people think David is stronger than Saul.
Yeah.
He can do more. He can kill more of the bad guys, and Saul doesn't like that.
He never did anything personal to Saul. Never, tried to kill Saul, never tried to usurp his throne. In fact, there's going to be a time later where he could kill him, but he chooses not to, because he says, that's not for me to do. That's it for God's timing. It's just, it's jealousy, it's ego, it's, even though he's the anointed king, he just cannot get over someone taking his glory, someone taking his spotlight. So I guess that's a lesson for everyone on how quickly ego can get the best of you if you're not careful. Saul's got it all, but he's worried about a little shepherd boy. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And then it's kind of neat at the end, right? So the whole arrow thing happens, and David, okay, David, you're going to have to go. But they meet one last time, and the emotion in verse 41, they kissed, that's the greeting, kiss on the cheek, and they wept together, but David wept the most. David understands this is going to be it for a while, where Jonathan and I get to hang out. And this is before the days of, Facebook or phone calls or instant messaging. Who knows if I'll see my friend again? And it really tugged at his heartstrings. Anything else in chapter 20? Again, just shows you the closeness of David and Jonathan and Saul's continued descent. We kind of talked about number 6 last time, the benefit of having Christian friends. Unless there's something you want to add to that. Good to have a friend like Jonathan. Good to have a friend like David who loves you as much as he loves himself or herself. Okay, well now we get an interesting section here where we see sort of a bad side of David. Let's read 1 through 9, this section of David at Nob. Fred Scott.
David came to Amalek, the priest at Nob. When he came to meet David, Amalek was trembling with fear, and he said to David, "Why are you alone? Why isn't there anyone with you?" David said to Amalek, the priest, "The king sent me on a mission and told me, 'Don't let anyone know anything about where I am sending you or about your orders. I have instructed the young men to wait for me at a certain place. So what do you have on hand? Please give me 5 loaves of bread or whatever is available." The priest answered David, "I do not have any ordinary bread, but there is holy bread. I can give it to you only if your young men have kept themselves away from women." David answered the priest, "Yes, indeed, women have been kept away from us just as they have been on previous occasions. Whenever I go out on a mission, the bodies of the young men are kept holy, even if it is only an ordinary journey. How much more then shall their bodies be holy today?" So the priest gave him holy bread, because there was no bread there except for the bread of the presence, which had been removed from the presence of the Lord and replaced with hot bread. Now one of Saul's servants was present that day, detained before the Lord. His name was Doeg the Edomite. He was in charge of Saul's shepherds. David said to Amalek, "Don't you have a spear or sword on hand here? I didn't bring my sword or my gear with me, because the king's mission was so urgent." The priest said, "The sword of Goliath the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, is here. It is wrapped in a cloth behind the place where the special vest is kept. If you would like to take that, take it, because there is nothing else here." David said, "There is no other like that one. Give it to me."
Okay, so David goes to the tabernacle here. Ahimelech is the priest at the time. Ahimelech's a little nervous. Why are you alone, and why is no one with you? David says he does have men with him, but they're kind of back there, and I told them to meet me at a certain place. David flat out isn't telling the truth here in verse 2. The king charged me with a certain matter. No one is to know anything about your mission and your instructions. So you're kind of starting to ask it, why lie? Like, what is David's motive here? And it's not going to be just here. If you look, verse 8, right? The fact that he even wants a sword, he was doing fine without a sword earlier when he trusted in the Lord with Goliath, but okay. I haven't brought my sword because the king's business was urgent. Again, you're not on any business from the king. That's not true. He's going to lie again in verse 13. That's a story that we're going to read next. He pretends to be insane in their presence of the Philistines. And so I think this is one of the sections where Scripture doesn't whitewash even the sins of the pretty important people. And David is definitely a pretty important person in the Bible. So way before the whole Bathsheba story, I've never come up with a great answer as to why he doesn't just come clean and say, I'm hungry. The bigger picture here, remember back when Eli and his sons, remember Hophni and Phinehas, they were kind of not great. They had sex with the women who came and they ate the meat they weren't supposed to eat. And Samuel had pronounced judgment on the house of Eli because of the sins of his sons. In the next chapter, the priests are going to all get killed. This is all the descendants of Eli. So God is going to bring judgment in fulfilling that prophecy that Samuel had made here now with this guy named Doeg. But it's almost like he uses David's false word. He uses David's deception to make his goal happen. Is it a lesson that God uses everything for his good, for his purpose, and you can't get around that? He's going to do whatever he has to do to... But basically what's going to happen in a nutshell is Saul hears about this and says to Ahimelech, why are you and David hanging out? What's the deal? Why are you trying to help him? And Ahimelech says, I didn't even know what was going on. He said he was on a mission from you. And Saul says, forget that. Kill all the priests.
Well, it says in the NIV, it's not clear why David resorts to deception in his response to Ahimelech. Perhaps it was an attempt to protect Ahimelech from the charge of involvement in David's escape from Saul.
Yeah, which is exactly
But
what's
so
going
his
to happen.
strategy was not successful.
Yeah, it's going to happen. If that was his motive, it happens the opposite of that, where Saul says, you were trying to help him, and now I'm going to kill you and all the priests. So it's one of those kind of, number one, even the best of people have their flaws, and David certainly does. It's also one where, if you remember the New Testament story where this comes in, Bible trivia, without looking at the sheet. Did you look at the sheet, or did you remember?
No, I remembered it's mentioned elsewhere.
Yeah, I remember what that story is. Let's find out. Turn to Matthew chapter 12.
Oh, I was gonna say that.
You were going to say Matthew 12? No, I knew it. So the whole thing about eating the consecrated bread.
Oh, that's
They remember the tabernacle had all those artifacts. One of the things, that table of showbread, and every week they would put 12 loaves of bread, kind of a picture of God's presence, and God's going to give you daily bread, and they'd replace the bread every week. So it's been placed on the altar, right? It's kind of sacred bread, and you couldn't just waltz in and eat it whenever you wanted to. Matthew 12, 1 through 8. Someone want to read that? John's got that.
At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry and began to pick heads of grain and eat them. When the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, "Look what your disciples are doing. It is unlawful on the Sabbath." But he said to them, "Have you not read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He entered God's house and ate the bread of the presence, which is lawful only for the priest to eat, not for him or his companions. Or have you not read the law that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple violate the Sabbath and yet are innocent? But I tell you that one greater than the temple is here. Yet if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the innocent. The Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath."
Yeah, so what's Jesus' point there regarding this story of David?
the bread's not the big deal.
Yeah, you guys are so focused on these details. The point of the Sabbath day is rest, right? The greater law of love is love your neighbor. Here's someone who's hungry and needs bread, and you're getting all, so he's going to go on. If one of you has an animal and it falls into a pit, won't you pick it out of the pit on the Sabbath? You major on the minors, and you don't understand. The Sabbath is about me. The Sabbath is about rest for your soul. It goes to what we talked about today, right? In Luther's time, they were majoring on the minors, all the rules and all the things you're supposed to do, and they lost sight of Christ. Christ became a rule giver, a lawgiver. If you're a Christian, you're going to follow this, and this. And the concept of rest for your soul wasn't there. It was just what you have to do for your soul to work your way to Christ. So we're thankful that Reformation, the gospel became back to the forefront again, where no, Christ has done it all. It's not what I do, it's what he's done. He's my Sabbath rest. Okay, so pack that away in the back of your brain that Jesus uses this section as his example of the rest that he's come to bring and not to major on minors. Yeah, I don't know how the Goliath sword, remember David had taken that with him after that battle. I don't know how Goliath's sword ended up at the tabernacle, but somewhere along the line it did.
I got tired of carrying it.
It is a big sword, yeah. Let's put it in the museum, yeah. But again, it just is, David killed him with a slingshot, right? David didn't need a sword. He said that day, I don't, here, take the armor, I don't need it. The weapon, it's too much, Saul. Just give me my stone and my slingshot and I'm good to go. But now here we are, like, well, need a sword if I'm gonna be on the run from Saul. And you have anything here? Well, we got Goliath's sword. He's great, there's no better sword than that. It's like, what happened, David? All of a sudden now you think you...
Well, now David has somebody to carry the sword for him.
Yeah,
He
he
doesn't
is.
carry it himself.
There you go, right? Yeah.
Sword bearer just went.
Yeah.
Are you sure, David? We can't find that thing's pretty heavy. Anything else on that section? I think it shows you David is a real person. He's a sinful person. He has issues like any of us. And this next section makes it even more interesting. 10 through the end of the chapter. Of all the places where David can flee to next, let's see where he chooses to flee to. Want to do that, Lynn Patrick? Your shoulder let you do that?
Sure. David quickly fled from Saul that day and went to Achish, king of Gath. The officials of Achish said to him, "Isn't this David, the king of the land? Didn't they dance and sing songs about him, saying, 'Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s?'" David took those words to heart, and he was very afraid of the Achish, king of Gath. He changed his behavior in their presence and pretended to be insane while he was in their hands. He inscribed on the doors of the gate and let his spit run down his beard. Then Achish said to his servants, "Look, can't you see that the man is insane? Why have you brought him to me? Don't I have enough madmen? Did you have to bring this madman into my presence? Should I keep this man in my house?"
So, Goliath's hometown was Gath, and David thinks it's a good idea to flee to Gath from Saul. David is recognized. Hey, isn't this the guy? Isn't this the guy that did everything he did against us, and the people sing about him, and they already think he's king, even though he's not quite yet. So now turn to Psalm 56. Keep your finger in 1 Samuel. The Psalms, we get an insight into these people's prayer life and things that are going through their mind. We got 4 or 5 different Psalms we're going to look at, but first of all, Psalm 56. So you see the little heading there, for the director of music to the tune of a dove on distant oaks of David, a miktam, it's just a musical term, when the Philistines had seized him in Gath. So it seems as if they had taken him captive. So what is going through David's head as he is sitting in a Philistine jail? Someone want to read Psalm 56? Tom's got that.
Be merciful to me, O God, for men hotly pursue me. All day long they press their attack. My slanderers pursue me all day long. Many are attacking me in their pride. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. God, whose word I praise, in God I trust. I will not be afraid. What can mortal man do to me? All day long they twist my words. They are always plotting to harm me. They conspire, they lurk. They watch my steps, eager to take my life. On no account let them escape. In your anger, O God, bring down the nations. Record my lament, lest my tears on your scroll, are they not in your record? Then my enemies will turn back when I call for help. By this I will know that God is for me. God whose word I praise, in the Lord whose word I praise, in God I trust, I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? I am under vows to you, O God. I will present my thank offering to you. For you have delivered me from death and my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before God in the light of life.
All right, summarize his prayer here.
David forgot the Gloria.
He forgot the what?
The Gloria.
Oh, the glory. Yeah. What do you hear when you hear David?
He's praising God.
If he was in a pit, he's maybe starting to get on his way back up here. He's, what just happened? Saul, he's on the run. Now the Philistines have captured him. He's maybe as low as he can go right now. And at the end of the day, the Lord is my helper. What can man do to me? They're going to get theirs one day, my enemies. But in you I trust, O Lord. In you, with your word I praise. It's a song of trust, a song of faith, a song of thanksgiving. It's good to hear. Good to hear what was going on in his heart. Because by his actions here, you sometimes think, where's David at with his faith? So now turn to Psalm 34. And it's going to be similar in language. So Lynn read how, in order to get out of the Philistine grasp, he pretends to be crazy. And the king says, I got enough crazies I'm ruling over. I don't need another one. So I got enough Philistine crazy people. I don't need an Israelite crazy person. Someone want to do Psalm 34?
Okay.
Betty's got that. And then Wendy, you can do the next one when we get to it.
I will extol the Lord at all times. His praise will always be on my lips. My soul will boast in the Lord. Let the afflicted hear and rejoice. Glorify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. The poor man called and the Lord heard him. He saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. Fear the Lord, you his saints, for those who fear him lack nothing. The lions may grow weak and hungry, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. Come, my children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Whosoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking lies. Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry. The face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to cut off the memory of them from the earth. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. A righteous man may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. He protects all his bones. Not one of them will be broken. Evil will slay the wicked. The foes of the righteous will be condemned. The Lord redeems his servants, and no one will be condemned who takes refuge in him.
Okay. You notice in the heading there, it says before Abimelech, who drove him away when he pretended to be insane. Remember, Abimelech just means my father, the king. So some say maybe Abimelech, in Rome, it was Caesar Augustus, it was Tiberius Caesar, it was Nero was a Caesar. Maybe Abimelech was just kind of the name for Pharaoh, same thing, right? Pharaoh, there was different pharaohs, then they had like surnames, but they were all called Pharaoh. Perhaps Abimelech was just sort of Abimelech, Achish. So they all had the name, my father is king, because technically all their fathers would have been king. And then their name, like for in this example, Achish would have been the name of this Abimelech, kind of like a Caesar or a Pharaoh or something like that. So again, a song, very full of trust, full of faith. The Lord's going to take care of me. Whatever happens, I know He's on my side, and He's going to deliver me however He chooses to deliver me. So this is good to hear what's going on inside David's soul as he's going through these trials in life. You notice in your footnote there, this is an acrostic. I don't know what an acrostic is, acrostic poem. I'll try to give you one, see if you catch on to it. A man went to the store because he was hungry. Can you guess what he bought? Don't you think? He bought meat. Everybody buys meat, for meat is tasty. Each sentence started with the letter of the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F. So this poetry here, each line starts with a different letter of the Hebrew alphabet in order. So, yeah.
Hate to say this, but that wasn't insightful until you pointed it out.
Right. You didn't catch on. I should have given you a hint. Listen to the first word of each. All right. Just a poetic thing that they. I don't know if we have any. I guess we have that in English. Might be acrostics out there.
I think the kids write those in school.
Yeah, something you do in school maybe. Anything else on David at Gath? So he realizes maybe it wasn't a good idea to flee to Goliath's hometown to get away from Saul. All right, on with his journey, 22, 1 through 5. And we're going to have a couple more Psalms to look up. Wendy, we said you were going to do this part, and then I'll have you do the first Psalm.
So David departed from there and escaped to the cave at Adullam. When his brothers and his father's entire household heard about it, they went down there to join him there. Everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered around him, and he became their commander. There were about 400 men with him. David went from there to Mizpah in Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, "Please let my father and mother come and stay with you until I find out what God will do for me." So he brought them to the king of Moab, and they stayed with him the whole time that David was in the stronghold. The prophet Gad said to David, "Do not stay in the stronghold. Leave and go to the land of Judah." So David left and went to the forest of Arah.
Okay, so David is gathering a little bit of forces here, and you notice the people who gather around him, they got some issues, right? They're desperate people, distressed, in debt, discontented. Later on, we're going to hear about David's fighting men, and you wonder if this is maybe who they were talking about, that they're going to be very skilled, they're going to be very trained, they're going to be very intelligent militarily. Perhaps this is that group that it's talking about. Moab, we had a famous Moabite. David's great-grandma is Ruth. Ruth's mom is Naomi, or in-law, right? Naomi, right? Remember, Naomi was a Jew from Bethlehem. Her sons marry Moabite women, Ruth and Orpah. And then the whole thing, all the guys die, and the women say, Naomi says, "You guys stay here in your homeland in Moab. I'm going to go back to Bethlehem. Don't call me Naomi anymore. Call me Mara," which means bitter. My life stinks and God's abandoned me. And basically, that's what she's saying. And Ruth has that famous line, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people are my people. Your God will be my God." And Orpah stays. Ruth goes back with her. And then the whole thing about Ruth and Boaz. And that's where, so David is from the line of Jesse, who's from the line of Ruth and Boaz, if you trace it back a couple generations. So anyway, there's family in Moab. And David is looking out for his dad, looking out for his mother, And, you know, Saul's out to get me. We want to keep you guys safe. Can you Moabites take care of them? And it seems like the answer is yes. So good on David for helping out his folks. Let's turn to Psalm 142 and Psalm 57. These are a little bit shorter. As he's hiding in the cave.
Some who?
142 and 57.
142 and 57. So which one do you have, Wendy?
142.
All right, you do that one?
With my voice I cry out to the Lord. With my voice I cry to the Lord for mercy. I pour out my complaint before him. I tell my distress before him. When my spirit grows faint within me, you are the one who knows my course. On the path where I walk, they have hidden a snare for me. Look to my right and see, there is no one who recognizes me. There is no escape for me. No one cares about my life. I cry out to you, Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Pay attention to my loud cry, because I am very weak. Rescue me from those who pursue me, because they are too strong for me. Set me free from my prison, so I can give thanks to your name. Then the righteous will gather around me, because you have accomplished your purpose for me.
When you read the Psalms, I always think, imagine if your prayers got transcribed. If someone recorded your thoughts and wrote them down, and then you could read them back later. Isn't that kind of what it would sound like? It'd just be, okay, Lord, I know that, you're God and you know everything, but I got this going on right now, and I'm just asking you to help me, and I trust that you know what you're doing. And you read the Psalms, they maybe not quite as informal as that, but that's kind of how they read, right? You're God, I got these troubles, but you're God, so I trust that you're gonna, it's a prayer, right? It's just like when we pray, it just maybe a little more fancy language, but basically the very, very similar themes. How about Psalm 57, the other one from the cave? John's got that.
Have mercy on me, O God, have mercy on me, because my soul has taken refuge in you. In the shadow of your wings I will take refuge until destruction has passed by. I call to God Most High, to God who completes his plans for me. He will send from heaven, and he will save me. He puts to shame the one who pants as he pursues me. God will send his mercy and his faithfulness. My life is spent among lions. I lie down among ferocious men whose teeth are spears and arrows, whose tongue is a sharp sword. Be exalted above the heavens, O God. May your glory be over all the earth. They spread a net for my steps. My soul was bowed down. They dug a pit in front of me. They have fallen into it. My heart is steadfast, O God. My heart is steadfast. I will sing and I will make music. Awake, my soul. Awake, harp and lyre. I will awake in the dawn. I will give thanks to you among the peoples, O Lord. I will make music to you among the nations, because your great mercy reaches above the heavens and your faithfulness to the skies. Be exalted above the heavens, O God. Let your glory be over all the earth.
Yeah, remember what instrument David played?
Harp.
He played the harp, right? So it makes sense that he would talk about, awake, O harp, awake, O lyre. All right, so again, you see some insight into David's soul as he's going through what he's going through on the run from Saul. Let's close up chapter 22 here. See how I think we can get through it. 6 through 15. This is the aftermath of the whole thing with Ahimelech and the priests. So someone want to do that? Tom's got that. 6 through 15.
But the prophet Gad said to David, do not stay in the stronghold, go into the land of Judah. So David left and went to the forest of Hereth. Now Saul heard that David and his men had been discovered. And Saul, spear in hand, was seated under the tamarisk tree on the hill at Gibeah, with all his officials standing around him. Saul said to them, listen, men of Benjamin, will the son of Jesse give all of you fields and vineyards? Will he make all of you commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? Is that why you have all conspired against me? No one tells me when my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse None of you is concerned about me or tells me that my son has incited my servant to lie in wait for me, as he does today. But Doeg the Edomite, who was standing with Saul's officials, said, I saw the son of Jesse come to Ahimelech, son of Ahitub at Nob. Ahimelech inquired of the Lord for him. He also gave him provisions and the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Then the king sent for the priest of Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, and his father's whole family, who were the priests at Nob. And they all came to the king. Saul said, Listen now, son of Ahitub. Yes, my lord, he answered. Paul said to him, Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, giving him bread and a sword, and inquiring of God for him, so that he has rebelled against me and lies in wait for me as he does today? Ahimelech answered the king, Who of all your servants is as loyal as David, the king's son-in-law, captain of your bodyguard, highly respected in your household? Was that day the first time I inquired of God for him? Of course not. Let not the king accuse your servant or any of his father's family, for your servant knows nothing at all about this whole affair. But the king said, You will surely die, Ahimelech, you and your father's whole family. Then the king ordered the guards at his side, Turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because they too have sided with David. They knew he was fleeing, yet they did not tell me. But the king's officials were not willing to raise a hand to strike the priests of the Lord. The king then ordered Doeg, You turn and strike down the priests. So Doeg the Edomite turned and struck them down. That day he killed 85 men who wore the linen ephod. He also put to the sword Nob, the town of the priests, with its men and women, children and infants, and its cattle, donkeys, and sheep. But Abiathar, the son of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, escaped and fled to join David. He told David that Saul had killed the priests of the Lord. Then David said to Abiathar, That day when Doeg the Edomite was there, I knew he would be sure to tell Saul, I am responsible for the death of your father's whole family. Stay with me, don't be afraid. The man who is seeking your life is seeking mine also. You will be safe with me.
All right, so, unfortunate. Saul, talking about going a little wacky, who does he first accuse of not letting him in on the information?
People with him.
His own, the people he trusts the most is commanders and how come no one tells me about David? How come none of you guys, you're all in on it. You're all conspiring against me. None of you is concerned about me. No one tells me my son, Jonathan, has incited my servant to lie in wait for me. Which one of you? You're all you can just almost see him, just frothing. He's just going nuts. And Doeg raises his hand. Actually, I know something that happened. I was there when Ahimelech and David were hanging out, and he gave him the sword, and he ate the bread, and now that just sets him off, Oh, bring him in here. Bring Ahimelech in here. Ahimelech's answer when Saul accuses him. Characterize his answer.
How on earth was I to know?
Yeah, I know. I don't know what. And even he says, David is like your son-in-law, and isn't he highly respected? And he's a captain of your bodyguard. Like, as far as Ahimelech knows, because remember, what did David say to Ahimelech? I'm on a mission from the king. I'm here on this sea. I can't tell you all about it, but so as far as Ahimelech knows, that you sent him, and you guys are like this, and I thought he was really close to you, and how am I to know all this going on? So he's just totally confused. So Saul says, okay, well, off with your head. And the army says, nah, we're not going to do that. It's a priest of the Lord, right? No thanks, Saul. But this Doeg guy seems very happy to do it. And not just to him, but the family. And then he goes into the town, the women, the children, the infants, the cattle, the donkeys, the sheep. Just a bloodbath. One more psalm to look at. Keep your finger here and turn to Psalm 52. So you heard how Abiathar, one of the priests, gets away. So now we have one person left from that line of Eli. And on your sheets there, that's kind of that section on verse 22. Psalm 52, another shorter one. The heading, when Doeg the Edomite had gone to Saul and told him David has gone to the house of Ahimelech. The Song of David. Fred's got that.
Why do you boast about evil, you hero? The mercy of God endures all day long. Your tongue plans destruction. It is like a sharpened razor, you scheming liar. You love evil rather than good. You love lying rather than speaking what is right. You lying tongue, you love every word that devours. But God will tear you down forever. He will grab you and pull you out of your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. Then the righteous will see and fear. Then they will laugh at him. Look, here is the man who did not make God his stronghold, but trusted in the greatness of his wealth. He grew strong by his destructive deeds. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the mercy of God forever and ever. I will thank you forever because you have done this. I will hope in your name in the presence of your favored ones, because it is good.
All right, so some not so kind words from David regarding Doeg and his dastardly deeds here in 1 Samuel 22. So on your sheets there, if you just look at that where it says, look, verse 22, as we look into the future, we see the Lord use Doeg's wickedness to carry out his prophecy against the house of Eli. In time, another priest, Zadok, would rise to prominence under David, and for a time, both Abiathar, who's Ahimelech's son, and Zadok served as high priests. When David died, only Zadok remained faithful to Solomon. In this way, the Lord fulfilled his prophecy to destroy Eli's family and put a faithful priest in his place. And Zadok, we could say maybe is a type of Christ. So although David took responsibility for the death of the priests, which he should have, it was indirect responsibility. We can say the Lord put Doeg there that day to begin to fulfill his prophecy about the house of Eli. So that's kind of what I was saying earlier, where God will use even our wickedness and our faults and our errors to accomplish his ultimate purpose. So even if we can say, David, you screwed up here, and David feels really bad about what he did, ultimately God's will was being done in what Samuel had said to Eli about Hophni and Phinehas way back in chapter 2. And maybe we can all think of times where you or someone you know messed something up and it wasn't good, but the Lord used it for his greater purpose and his greater glory, and doesn't condone your sin, but God's going to always work everything out for the good of those who love him. Anything else on chapter 22? Like I said, there's not a real lot of big spiritual meat here, but it's just kind of interesting. David's rise to power is not an easy one. A lot of drama associated with it. All right, well, we'll try to get another 3 chapters next time. Got about 7 chapters left, 8 chapters left in 1 Samuel. Very good. Thanks for playing today, Lynn. That was great. Happy Reformation to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day of grace, and truly the word grace is at the forefront on a day like today. As we read the story of David and his highs and his lows, it's great to see the Psalms. David sounds just like any of us in this room. A sinful man who had doubts from time to time, had concerns, had enemies around him. And yet at the end of the day, he realized his hope was in you, his trust was in you and you alone could he find his salvation. May we echo his words on our good days and our bad days and everything in between. May we remember the fact that we are saved in Christ alone, grace alone, faith alone, the words of Holy Scripture alone. And that can never be taken from us. It is the rock on which we build our here and our eternity. So bless us as we continue on the path to heaven. In Jesus' name, amen.